Hi everyone, welcome to the session of our web series, Fireside Chat with Champions, in which we interview global business leaders, asking them crowdsourced questions relevant to the biggest challenge we face today, COVID-19 and its impact on various aspects of business and the way we can steer ourselves in current uncertainties. Today we have a special guest with us, Ferdinand Grapperhaus, co-founder and CEO of PHYSEE Technologies. PHYSEE makes building smart and sustainable buildings using solar and sensors integrated in building components. PHYSEE, which stands for Physics and Seeing, has developed smart windows which generates energy and data. PHYSEE was awarded as Most Innovative SME of Netherlands, Technology Pioneer by World Economic Forum, PropTech Award, and was winner of MIPIM World Start-up Competition. Ferdinand, who loves to build powerful teams that build impactful products, is a physicist by education and an entrepreneur by passion. He did his master's in science from Delft University of Technology. Thanks, Ferdinand, for accepting our invitation. I would request you to let our viewers know a bit more about you and your current interests and activities. The floor is yours, Ferdinand.
Thank you very much, Deepak, for this warm introduction. I'm thrilled to have a conversation with you, and thank you for allowing me to share our story and our vision for now. Absolutely right. We are a fast-growing company in the Netherlands. We are, as one might refer to, actually a potential stereotype of a millennial company. We are very impact-driven. And I truly believe that's the new way to get things done, to gather people focused on the mission, to make sure that they all feel their own ownership in a mission. And specifically, our mission is indeed to make the built environment more energy neutral. And why did we choose the built environment? If you look at a bigger picture globally, you see that buildings consume 40% of all energy worldwide. So there's a very big chunk of the total energy consumption that buildings are responsible for. And then as a physicist, I like to indeed look at the problem, analyze it completely. And if you look at the problem of buildings, you see that they were once designed just to be functional on creating a roof, creating a closed environment in which there is privacy, an environment to live, an environment to work. But they were never designed to be energy neutral or energy efficient, energy positive even one day. They were never designed as such. So now we're making these incremental steps in making buildings a bit more energy positive. And we have a completely different approach. We really look again at buildings and we try to add as much solar as possible throughout the entire building skin. So not only on top of the building, really integrated in the materials of the building. And we also add sensors. And not just a sensor on top of the roof, which is a weather station, but really in every window we add sensors that give an image of what's going on in the building of a very high resolution, so that you can really see on every level what the amount of heat is that's coming in, the amount of heat losses going out, the amount of light, what it does with the air quality on the inside and the outside. And in that way, we're actually giving a building a functional skin, just like we have a skin that senses and can react. And we are now with about 50 people. We have solar engineers, building construction engineers, people working in the lab, developing different coatings, but people out there trying to make the right partnerships, and all focused on this impact-driven mission. And I think that's what's been exciting me, but also my co-founders and the rest of the organization, that we're working on this one goal to have a positive impact. And I think that responsibility is really up to us. We cannot blame any longer the generation above us, and we cannot blame them for passing on the bill towards us and then doing the exact same thing towards the next generation. It's time to come with concrete solutions, and I'm very happy that in the past 6 years we actually developed very concrete solutions to make buildings smart and sustainable. And then you're working on your mission and you're working on your strategy, and then all of a sudden everyone on a global level gets affected by a crisis of a new form, a new shape, a new timeline, a new kinds of effects nobody had actually anticipated on. And then it's horrible to see the effects it has on a global level, the casualties it has on various locations all over the world. And so it is a real crisis, and it's a real crisis we have to take seriously. And I think we are seeing on a global level that the majority of world leaders are taking it seriously. But looking at it from an organization perspective, looking at it from our perspective, I'm also very amazed how adaptable and resourceful our organization has showed to be. Switching to remote working in a way that no one could ever imagine up front. Working online in documents all together, people working from home, working from their addresses where they were stuck at holidays, people working together in ways that are unmatched. And also then realizing in a much faster pace where all the difficulties are from working remotely and where all the challenges are. And I think to name some of them in this still introductory talk, I think it's exciting to see that over the past months, I've really noticed that we went from focused, planned work to a lot of packed content. Every meeting, it's maybe a 1-minute check-in, and then you dive into the content. And we really had to steer back a little bit from it again, because if you talk only content, you will get more and more follow-ups. And the more follow-ups you get out of the content, the less time you have to actually also focus on the content and have focus time. And in that way, you get more and more meetings, and you're being drained by the amount of content, and you get less and less time to also prepare for the next session and to prepare for the next meeting. And I think that is also what we see is that when you or I or anyone used to have a meeting, the next day or the day before you would have a meeting, you would check your agenda and you say, oh, I have a sales meeting tomorrow. What should I wear? What should I bring? Which presentation? Is there a colleague coming? You are already mentally preparing to what you're going to do that next day. And even if you have 5 meetings, then still you are aware of all the things you're going to do. And that brings a certain kind of preparation, it brings a certain kind of mentality of focusing on what you want to get done. And right now, it's just opening your laptop, taking a sip of coffee, and you click join, and there you are in the meeting, right? And what I see, what I noticed, and internally, but also externally, people come much less prepared to a meeting because they just had to press join and they are not already mentally or physically focused on the outcome. So in a roller coaster type of way, we also discovered, of course it's cool to talk content, and of course it's nice to just click join, but you have to be even more strict on your own agenda. You have to plan focus time. And not only you and I, not only the leaders or in an organization, everyone has to plan focus time. So we also created a concept where you have a meeting and you add a shadow meeting to it. So automatically, and I think it should be a functionality on Outlook or Google or whatever type of, that as soon as you plan a meeting, automatically a shadow meeting is planned, which gives you time to either prepare or follow up on that meeting itself. So as more of an introduction to this time, the moment where we're having this conversation on an organizational level, it's super interesting to be in this roller coaster, but also to see that internally we indeed have difficulties and we come to challenges, but we also are very reflective and overcome them quickly. And this is going to enable us, and therefore I'm sharing it because I wish this for every organization, is going to enable us to prepare for the new normal even more. And I think every company will have a big head start if they really went all in right now, because everyone's forgiving right now. So just try working online in a document. Try doing video sessions in which you also have a workshop. Try sales meetings, or try it, because right now everybody is forgiving, and at a certain point we are in this new normal, and you will have an advantage if you've shown to be good at it and adaptable.
No, you're
So
perfectly.
That would be my advice.
You're perfectly articulated, perfect views about your company, and I fully agree with you that, we are getting into meeting, and there is a lot of indiscipline in that, because you expect not just you, even if you can discipline yourself, but making people disciplined that actually they come in meeting prepared, that becomes a very, very pain point, right? And sometimes if it is not your own team, you cannot tell your customer that come prepared, right? So unfortunate reality is that, and again, it's not that they are wrong. They are also finding this type of activities first time in their lives. They have hardly worked from their homes. They are having kids to around them. They're having their dogs barking all the time. So for them also to concentrate is a challenge. So that's why I started focusing more using WhatsApp and Telegram than the email, because there the communication is short. Generally what happens is that when we have to read email and reply, we need a quality time of half an hour, right? WhatsApp, we pick it up, see it and reply, because you are little bit informal there, right? The formalities dies down, so that makes the path shorter. So people are okay to respond in that. So I started communicating far more on WhatsApp with my external stakeholders. And before meeting, two reminders. In one reminder, a day before the meeting, I would send the agenda, I would send my questions, I would send my perceptions. And so that I'm not telling them to do something, but at least I'm hammering them that actually this could be discussed, so that they'll have some thought about it before they get into it.
That's very intelligent, because I think that's an opportunity that just lies there. It's because of the fact that everybody is less, let's say, prepared. There's an opportunity in steering towards your goals or targets. Right. If someone hasn't prepared the meeting for the next day yet, and if you send them a message, hey, I really look forward to discussing topic X or topic I, then it's in their head. So it's an opportunity, and it's great that you're actually already applying it. I think WhatsApp, Telegram, it's been more and more of my my way of communicating professionally now as well. Right. Which brings in another challenge, is that our personal and professional lives are even intertwined even further, and it's
no, that's gone for a toss. Believe me, there is nothing like personal professional. You are 24/7 personal and 24/7 professional. You have to find those sweet spot, right? And I have again one more thing actually, to de-stress myself. I found it very, very useful. I take at least 3 to 4 very short naps, right? So I'll take 15-minute nap maybe after every 3 hours, because you're putting so much of screen time, your eyes, your body, right? And you're hardly doing the physical interaction, right? So our body is not made for that, right? So giving your mind the rest, right? Because you'll find that the Zoom meeting drains far more than the physical meeting, because in Zoom meeting, either you are listening, and that too if you are having a patchy connection, so you are more tuned. What this guy said, right?
Well,
so,
you get less of the information.
So every 3 hours, take 15 minutes of total reset of your body, where your brain, your eyes, your all senses are at zero. So that's great, Ferdinand. That brings us to the first question. Here I would be trying to touch upon the industry, which is very, very close to the activities you are doing. So if you see, economy itself is currently going through a serious recessionary pressures, right? Because of COVID and the lockdowns. So this would drive definitely the fund flow for the private sector. At the same time, even if you see the governments, their revenue receipts are going to go down because the business has gone down, taxes will go down. At the same time, government also have to invest far more on social sector. Now, in this scenario, how do you see this impacting the construction activities globally, especially in area of commercial and residential construction, in which your solution plays a very, very critical role?
Yeah. What we see in construction industry is, at the moment, everything is just continuing. right? At the moment, every project, what has to be built has to be built. We're finding very intelligent ways of keeping 1.5 meter distance, and continues are just continuing, because everybody knows if we stop with building the buildings, then we're in the next stage of this crisis. And there is still a very big shortage on housing, affordable housing, but also on office space, not only in the Netherlands, but I think urbanization is on a global level resulting in such a shortage in affordable housing in urban areas and office buildings. So at the moment, we don't see any delays. However, what we do see is that we do expect a delayed reaction in the construction industry to the current crisis. And that's just how the financial sector actually is constructed to financially, to invest in real estate projects. What we notice is that it all starts with LPs investing in funds. And these funds are for real estate portfolio. And once the investments are done, the investments can be allocated to different real estate projects. And what this year, a lot of these primarily investing organizations and individuals have really been affected by the stock exchange going down, or companies going bankrupt, or just an economical regression. And so there will be less to invest in real estate portfolios in this year, next year, coming years. So we will see a delayed reaction of this lack of investments. However, at the same time, we also see opportunities, especially for those same investors, because in these times, organizations will be looking for more debts related to their real estate portfolio, and banks might be more hesitant. Banks are, of course, also due to the previous crisis, they are much more hesitant in taking certain risks, especially in real estate. Has to be AA+++. So there might be opportunities, or actually we do see opportunities for private investors or organizations investing in real estate portfolios that have a long-term investment horizon to actually go into debt financing of certain real estate projects. And we also see that that results into additional opportunities to set priorities to the type of projects. Because once it's not a bank that is investing or sharing the debt, but if it are family offices or institutional investors that have a certain mission, they can select on more preferable real estate projects that might focus on more future-proof buildings. So yes, we do see a delay in the reaction to the crisis. We are preparing for it, but we also see opportunities for investors on the debt side of the real estate industry.
Perfect. Continuing to the same discussion, if you see that, currently the trend in the real estate was, especially the commercial real estate, was that to build big buildings, have awesome facades around it, right? And then have greater areas, and then start thinking about getting a lot of people in those buildings, right? To make it more efficient, more effective. And typically I'll say that money-wise, saner idea to do that, right? So that's why you have a big corporation having their own buildings. You are having co-working spaces, which is having hundreds of startups just in one building, right? But suddenly you'll see that a lot of those things are going to change post-COVID. Startup would like people to work from home. A corporation will say that actually, if I have to keep the social distancing, there is no point in getting the people within the office. It's better than to put in different satellite offices where 8 or 10 or 15 people can work, right? Rather than having a complete big headquarters. I'm not saying that is going to happen immediately, but you'll find that those things happening. In this scenario, how do you see the clean building or green building technologies like yours, right? where you suddenly have, instead of like serving a one large building with a big quantum of business, having too many small buildings to serve, right? So how do you see that this whole thing evolving, or maybe I'm not right in assessing it. So if you can guide me that whether what I'm thinking is right or what changes you think would be happening.
Yeah, what I like a lot about your question is it triggers something. So first of all, let me ask you and viewers as well to take on for a moment our fantasy hat or imaginary hat. 3 years ago, at a innovation table, I suggested that in 10 to 20 years from now, it might be the case that instead of people getting in their car, going to work, creating traffic jams and polluting and arriving at work and being all together in a packed environment and then going back, instead of that world, that environment, that people would remain at home, sit behind their own desk or stand in their own and put on VR goggles and go to a virtual reality world in which there is an office and they see their colleagues and they have a work day and they click to go to a sales meeting and they click to, or so they, and then at certain moments, maybe even during the lunch break or at the end of the day, they just take off the VR goggles and everybody at this table laughed at me. Everybody said, this is ridiculous. This is sort of matrix kind of imagination. But now, if I would share this story last week, it's already much closer to people's perception because, yeah, how far away is that from staying at home, opening your laptop, using Zoom or and you can change the background. And it's actually a stepping stone towards that new reality. So this was the using your fantasy goggles part. If we are indeed going to a world where we are making less use of offices or big offices and we're polluting much less, and what then becomes the new identity of an office, and what do people expect from an office? It's a place to get together. It's not necessarily a place to do focused work. You can do that at home in your own office setup, more or less. But it's a place where you actually meet. It's a place where you can be creative together, because even though working in documents together online is absolutely improved by a factor of 100 over the past years, it still doesn't allow for the same type of creativity if you have a whiteboard, right? Standing on the whiteboard, working on the whiteboard. So it will be a new place where people get together. People might bring their pets, might bring their kids, might bring their even partners. Why are you and your partner not going to the same location, same office where you are doing your things and she is doing her? And so, yes, it will change. The way we're using office buildings, it's going to drastically change. And especially, that was, I think, what you were referring to, also the size of it as well. So I see a couple of opportunities, and I see also a possible information for people to think about. First of all, is the most related to your question, and that's what happens with the big offices versus the smaller, or maybe there is a big opportunity. Because right now, if we look at the market, only the huge offices, the offices for companies that have $1 billion plus revenue, only those offices are the real smart buildings. They have all the sensoring. They can afford to put a lot of solar on the roof. They can afford to get the best air conditioning, climate control, because it are these huge projects. And I think there will be an opportunity that now going potentially to more and more smaller offices, these offices will start to demand easier solutions in which also these offices are more sustainable and made more smart and create the same comfort as these bigger offices will offer. So yeah, maybe a smaller building closer to your home can offer great comfort and will allow you to pollute less because you're not getting in a car and driving back and forth. but it should then still meet the demands of and I think of the new generation, because in a couple of years, I think it's about 8 years, but this is something for the viewers or you to also to do a bit more of a Google or homework on, is I think in about 8 years, the largest purchasing power over the world are millennials.
True.
And it's a generation that wants different things. We don't want more. We don't want more at all. We want less, actually. We want less cars, less pollution, less closed doors. And we demand maybe more from our environment. It should be a clean environment. It should be a healthy environment. It shouldn't be all work. It's not work and life balance. It's life balance. It's one thing, the topic we touched upon in the beginning. So in 8 years from now, people using buildings will actually have different demands than the past 40 years. So it doesn't mean that people right now shouldn't invest in innovations and that they shouldn't invest in sustainable buildings. Because if you're building a building right now and it's opening in a couple of years from now, you want it to meet the requirements of those future tenants. And these requirements are very often focused on health and sustainability.
That's a great articulation. That's a great articulation of what we might see in future. So thanks for sharing that perspective. Ferdinand, let's get a little bit closer to the legacy of what you are creating, right? You are creating a smart skin-based covering for the buildings, right? Which gives data and it gives energy. But before you, one of the craze in the world for green tech was actually the PV cells. So we used to have large solar farms, right? And billions of dollars has been put into that. And now you are finding that they're struggling, right? A lot of those farms have now started disappearing. Some of them are not even maintained. The companies which were supposed to be like, the next big thing, the Sun Edisons of the world, right? Now, currently, they're as good as non-existent. How do you see the impact of the legacy, right, on your current business? At the same time, do you think even that legacy system would exist, or it's dead?
It's an energy transition. So yes, it will have an impact, and yes, I think it will also still be part of the end solution. But we're going towards a new way of using different types of energy and electricity, and I strongly believe that I always believe in a more natural approach. Look at the earth, look at organisms, look at how our planet takes care of itself. And it's a very decentralized way of taking care of different habitats and ecosystems. And I think that will also be the solution for the energy transition, a decentralized energy grid. And at very local places, there needs to be enough power production itself to make that specific environment energy neutral or potentially energy positive. I still see room for the legacy technology to replace those larger energy consuming businesses. So if you're a steel producer or they need these type of large solar parks to be able to produce enough power. But for a decentralized system to work, we need local power production. And if you think of local power production, everybody automatically thinks of batteries. And yes, we need batteries because we need battery systems to keep in balance. And I'm not saying we don't need batteries, but just if you make a calculation, there's not enough lithium in the world to make the entire world energy efficient if we're going to rely on storage itself. So first of all, we need to also adapt our mindset that if we really want to be more in touch with nature and we want to have a future for our planet, we also should have a less consumeristic approach. So let me give you one very concrete example. Is if you plug your cord in the electricity grid, you expect power to come out of it all of the time. But if we start to integrate solar in every building material, so it's in glass, it's in concrete, it's in lights on the street, it's every material itself should have solar, but it shouldn't always have a battery. In many cases, let's say if you're traveling in the train and there's a window in the train and it has solar in it, yeah, you can connect your phone to it and you can charge your phone. But if you go into the tunnel, we should expect that your phone's not charging anymore. And it is actually a different mindset, and I think future generations will be easier. It will be easier for them to adapt to. Is that we get to a situation where we go a bit more back to nature, where we are a bit more in touch with our planet, and where we start to understand that it's not always on-demand power or on-demand from every building component. And of course, for the primary causes and for the primary things in your household or offices, there needs to be a battery and there needs to be always power for your kitchen or for hospitals and etc. But if we make our houses in such a way that we have more natural ventilation and that there is a heat cold storage solution in the ground and there's solar on the roof and you can use the energy when the sun shines, then we get into a new way of living that will enable the energy transition without completely depleting the amount of lithium we have, and being a decentralized, having a decentralized energy distribution system. And I'm making a lot of shortcuts right now. So I'm not saying we don't need energy storage. I'm also not saying we don't need load balancing. All those things, I take them for necessary. We need them in the future. I'm saying we should also go one step beyond, and we should accept to think of energy again as something which is not necessarily on demand. It's something, if we want to get it from nature, we should also know when to get it from nature. When it's windy, when it's sunny, when it's warm in the ground. I hope this comes across a little bit.
No, I 100% agree. Believe me, I've been someone who has been studying this activity when we talk about clean energy. I've been following it for I'm saying that few years now. And I strongly agree with your idea of that actually we'll have to start thinking as a decentralized way. And if you have seen that because of Corona, that actually just not the energy part of it. Even the supply chain, we'll have to start decentralizing it because we have tried to centralize too many things. So when you are hit by something like Corona, where actually the disruption happens, you need shorter supply chain, you need shorter supply of whether it's a service, whether it's energy, or whether it is products. So I strongly believe that we'll have to make our buildings self-sufficient, we'll have to make our societies self-sufficient, our cities self-sufficient, nations, and then the world. And this is how we should be working, rather than believing that let's have one power center for everything and then rest of the people can draw energy or product or service. Having China as the global powerhouse of product, right? We've seen the challenges we have seen, right? Because of breaking down of the supply chain. So I believe we need to rethink of globalization, but in a context of decentralized globalization rather than globalization in form of centralizing things. So I fully agree with you. And
absolutely true.
Yeah,
and I think to add on it, add on it even is that people, and I really want to inspire people to a bottom-up approach does work on this. So in the Netherlands, there are these different initiatives of small ecosystems that are working on the circular economy, creating their own energy, making their own. And I visited once there for a couple of times to one of these. It's a blue city it's here in Rotterdam, and it's a great environment. And I was there, and there was also another visitor and saying, yeah, it's all super cool, but what does it make sense? It's at such a small scale. But in New York, they're doing the same thing. And in the southern part of the Netherlands, they're also doing the same thing. And so you get all these hubs and all these small hubs. And when you only focus on one hub, yeah, it's not effective. But if all these hubs start to grow and learn their own lessons and start to share and build communities, then all of a sudden these hubs grow and start to touch each other. And then you get a decentralized community, a global community that's built from bottom up on using our planet resources in a much more effective way. So what I want to say there is that never let yourself hold yourself down by thinking, wait a second, this is at such a small scale, because it isn't. Whatever you do can be shared very quickly at a certain point. And if you make progress on a small scale, others can do too. And then you get the power of mass. So that would be really a view worthwhile sharing to you, but also I think any of your followers and those listening, is that focus on what you can do in your own environment, be persistent, and once you get to successes but also challenges, share them, and great things might come of it.
No, I 100% agree, and believe me, everybody respect the Dutch innovation, right? Dutch people, they are always very, very innovative. In fact, a country which is having hardly any land becomes the second biggest exporter of food produce. So that shows how smart you were, because actually you were not dependent on anybody to supply your food when everything was locked down. So I always I visit Netherlands now, very, very often, and it's awesome, beautiful country, very, very innovative and smart people. So hats off to that, and continue the great work. We all get inspired by the things you are doing. So Ferdinand, that brings us to the last section of our discussion. Here we are looking at pointed advice from you for startups and entrepreneurs on one hand, that what they should be doing or not doing, and also at the same time some insights for investors, that how they should see the current marketplace of how the startups are, to invest or not to invest, or in case invest, how to invest. So if you can give a little bit of perspective of that, that would be great.
Yeah, so twofold, one for the founders and one for the investors. Let's start with the founders. I think that's where it all should start. I think especially if you're setting up a business right now, try not to think of the current situation. And it's maybe a very open door, but really think of your interpretation of what the new normal will be like, and try to come up with a solution, or try to come up with technology or services that fit that new world. And a recommendation would be to think of solutions that are actually play a role in that new world, and are not just, of course, you can always, and it's up to you, you can always come up with solutions that will, on a short term, benefit from the crisis or benefit from the new normal. And that's, I'm not saying that's not okay, but if you want to do something that will keep you going for a longer time, that will keep you focused, that will enable you to build great teams, then choose something that's going to have a change, be able to change things or have a positive impact. Choose something that will enable the new normal. And I think innovation shows itself to be more important than ever before. And so we are, Deepak, we're communicating now with, I don't know how many miles in between or time difference. And this is made possible because of technology, because of innovation. And the new normal will actually be quite a pleasant way of living our lives because of this new normal, because of the technology and innovation, I mean. So this shows how important innovation is and how important technology is. So think of something that's close to you, that can have a positive impact, and go for it, go for it, go for it, and go for it. Yeah, that would be, and once you're in it, we've seen, I think, the past 20 years, we had many role models which, in my honest opinion, lack empathy. I think many of our role models going, and they're absolutely awesome, and the Elon Musks and Steve Jobs and it's of this world, they did amazing things in their time, but it's not cool that they lack empathy. It's just not cool. And so don't try to copy paste that too much. Think, because if you have empathy in your leadership, your ability to see problems not only from your own perspective, but also from others around you becomes much bigger, and you will be way more resilient, way more resourceful, and way more adaptable, and more fun to work with. Try not to follow that old mindset of leadership too much. Integrate empathy in your leadership. And then going to investors, focus. As humans, there's a pitfall. There's a pitfall to always think, oh, this is so bad, and this is a crisis, or how are we going to get out of this? But over centuries, we have seen regression come and go, and the content of this crisis might be difficult, but the way how humans will actually overcome it will be the same. And in a couple of years, we will have overcome it, and we will have come with new solutions, and there will be a new normal. And I think those businesses that are actually investing right now in innovation, in building things, those will be the survivors. Those will be the ones that are going to shine. And keep in mind, especially as an investor, that what I said before, the largest purchasing power in the world in, let's say 10 years from now, that largest purchasing power will demand new things that people have been demanding over a long period of time. So invest in companies, businesses, initiatives that are going to serve that new demand of this new purchasing power, and you will flourish, also financially.
That's great advice, and in fact, I fully agree with you about having empathy, and the previous great guys lacking that. In fact, I always tell those companies or the founders who work with me that post-COVID, successful founders would be those not just with passion but also compassion. So that's very critical. That's very critical.
High five! High five!
So, Ferdinand, it was a pleasure talking to you, and we have a lot of things similar, right? Our thought process matches a lot on quite a few things. Would be in touch with you going forward post this discussion as well. I see a lot of things we can collaborate in. As you rightly said, that technology connects us, and that also gives opportunity for collaborating. So we'll be doing that for sure. Thanks a lot for giving your time. It was indeed very, very helpful discussion for me, and definitely for our audience. They'll learn a lot of insight from you, and thanks a lot. Stay safe.
Thank you very much as well. It was a pleasure for me to talk with you, and have a great evening there.